Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about Frustum Culling, which is a way of rendering things faster by getting rid of the stuff that we don't want in a 3D scene. So first of all, when we're rendering these guys, triangles, polygons, pretty much everything that you see in a game is rendered this way. And what we have is a polygon which is made out of 3 points that we call vertices. And we send these vertices in huge lists to the graphics card. The graphics card goes through them and draws triangles using these lists of vertices. The problem is, obviously, we send a lot of vertices to the graphics card, and some of them aren't on screen. And while the graphics card is actually able to, of course, go, well, this vertex, and this vertex aren't on screen, so I don't want to draw them. That's very expensive because we've wasted a lot of bandwidth sending kind of information to the GPU and draw calls and things for objects that aren't going to be seen. So we want to use culling. We want to get rid of the things we're not going to draw. So the first thing we can do is we can look at these vertexes and say, which order am I drawing these in? And then if we see a polygon which is being drawn in the opposite order, we know we're looking at the back of it, we're looking at the back face of the polygon, and we can just discard that polygon. Thing is, doing that on the GPU is wasteful because we've sent that to the GPU. It'd be better if we never sent it to the GPU to start with. So, what we do is we build a shape around our camera in the game called a frustum. So this is a model I made because I like making terrible models in the middle of the night. And what we have here is your camera would be here looking through, and these planes represent the limits of what you can see. So if you drew these, you'd never be able to see them because they'd be exactly on the edge of what you see. And there's a back plane as well and a front plane. So this is the closest things that can be rendered to the camera. If you've ever, in a 3D world, moved the camera just too close to something and you kind of clip through it a bit, that's because it's clipped with the front plane. And if you're ever walking around a huge game world and you see things in the distance disappearing very suddenly, it's probably because they've gone beyond this back plane. So what we can do is we can cull objects against this shape, this volume, and it's a very efficient way of getting rid of things that we don't want in the scene. The problem is, how do we do this? So first of all, we are going to do this usually on the CPU. So this is a CPU, which I just found, and I just wanted to show you this because this is an Athlon, or an Athlon 64 from 2001. And this is probably the best processor ever made. But yeah, so we're doing these things on the CPU, or maybe a slightly newer one. And by doing this, we save bandwidth, not sending draw calls and not sending items to the GPU to be drawn. So we have our game's character, or an item in the scene, which is Winnie the Pooh. We want to draw Winnie the Pooh. We need to make sure Winnie the Pooh's on screen, because he's a very high poly character. Maybe he's one of the important NPC, or maybe the main character. He might be 50,000 polygons. And we don't want to draw 50,000 polygons on the screen. So what we do is we need to cull him. Now, checking every single one of those vertices in Winnie the Pooh, so we've got 50,000 polys, but that could be 100,000 vertices or more. We don't want to check every single one to see if Winnie the Pooh fits in this. What we do is we get the bounds of Winnie the Pooh, so his furthest points, so the lowest part, the furthest away part, and we build a box around that. So we make a bounding box using Winnie the Pooh's bounds. So we jam him in the box. I had a lid somewhere, but I've lost it. So Winnie the Pooh is now just defined as a box. So now all we need to do is we just need to test the 6 points of this box. Sorry, the 8 points of this box, against our frustum. So this can be done with a simple intersection test, because this is just a series of planes at the end of the day. And we can see if this box sits inside the frustum. So that's a lot cheaper. So now we can decide whether we're going to render Winnie the Pooh based on testing a box against this cuboid shape. But it goes further, because a box is still quite a complex shape, and that could be an oriented bounding box, which means it could have rotations as well, or an axis aligned one, which means it's not rotated, but because of that it doesn't fit the object as well, and therefore it's not as accurate. So we can actually start with an even less accurate thing. We can just put a sphere around the object, and then all we're doing is measuring a distance effectively, because a sphere is just a point in the middle with a distance, which is going to show you your diameter, you know? Once we know that, we can just test a sphere against our frustum, and it's really quick and simple, and then we can go for the tighter shape, so we can then test our boxes against it, and then we could even test polygons against it if we wanted to waste some GPU power, CPU power. And then once we've done that, we'll know whether we want to render Winnie the Pooh or not. So this is quite a simplification. There's actually a lot of really clever things that you can do with space partitioning and chopping up that frustum shape into smaller shapes, or having the game world set into like a series of volumes, so you're not testing the objects but actually just the volume they sit in. But at the end of the day, frustum culling is not complicated, and the maths to do it is pretty simple. You effectively need to know about a little bit of geometry. You know how to deal with, say, spheres or circles in 2D, and polygons, triangles, a little bit of vector maths, but nothing you can't pick up. So if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe, and follow me on Patreon, and I'll have some more videos soon. I'll see you then.